of all of those questions, I'm going to start us out with a question that I have for you. And if you want to use the chat room for this, you can type in your response. If you want to raise your hand or unmute yourself, feel free because I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about it if you need to. So, my question for you guys is, what was your original motivation to raise a puppy for us, for our organization? What brought you into us? Was it the fact that you were a dog lover, and you didn't want maybe a full-time job or a full-time dog, a dog of your own? Was it that you wanted to be part of something in your community and you were looking for a good volunteer opportunity? You wanted to help our clients out. What was it that really brought you in as a puppy raiser? What was your interest? And is it different now? So now that you've been puppy raising for a little while, has that changed? Is your motivation changed at all? So while you guys are thinking about that, oh, Dana Cochran says fondness for dogs. Yes, I think most of us are probably going to have that in common, Dana, is that at the core end of it all, we are all dog lovers. And so if we're going to volunteer for something, I think it makes it that much more enjoyable that we are working with dogs. Now on to our behavioral questions. So again, at any point that you guys have an answer to that question that I posed for you, what was your motivation to become a puppy raiser and has it changed? I also want to be able to take some behavioral questions as well. So you can either use your raise your hand feature, type a question into the chat room, and we'll go from there. All right. Looks like we have a hand raiser, and just gonna see who it is. My computer screen, I have to change it around. So if you have your hand raised, go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, Melissa. This is Colleen Marsh. How are you doing today?
Hi, Colleen. How are you? How's Miss Luna?
She's doing okay. I have a potty training question.
Okay.
Um, I thought we were doing, she's 6 months old right now. I thought we were all done with accidents, and she is starting to have accidents now. I have trained her to knock the bell at a door to go out when she has to go out. Like first thing in the morning, she'll knock at the door and I'll rush. I have like a lead that I put her on to let her go outside.
Right.
She'll come back and then everything will be fine. Well, all of a sudden she's starting to pee in the house, up in our kitchen, in our basement, and she's not knocking to go out to have to go. I mean, the time she peed in the kitchen the other day, she had just come in from being outside. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure why we're having accidents again.
Good question. And I bet some of your fellow puppy raisers have some really good advice for you. I've got some ideas myself. Have you ever heard of the term FOMO? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
FOMO stands for fear of missing out. And a lot of our young puppies have that problem. So, what tends to happen, and it's very typical right around that 5, 6, 7 months of age point, is that we send them outside with the expectation that they're going to go outside and they're going to do their business right away.
Yes, yes.
But they start finding leaves and good smells, and they're playing with a twig outside, and they get distracted. And by the time they come in, they've never actually done their business.
Okay.
And so, because they
You know,
have that,
I thought about that because I
yeah,
mean, now I've started sometimes actually going back out with her again, which is what I used to do in the beginning. I used to take her out and make sure she went and not let her play as much outside. But now I'm making sure she goes because I'm thinking that same thing. Maybe she's not going when she's out there for all
yeah.
that time.
So really, so stay on that path. I would go out there and I would make it a business trip, meaning that we're not going out there to play. She might get distracted. She might see a toy. I try not to engage play until they're completely done going. So
Okay.
once she's done completely parking, then we can have a play session. Then I'm going to follow you around and we're going to have a good time. But before that, it's all business. That's what we're out
I
there
mean,
for.
at this age, how many times should she have to go be going pee outside?
It depends on the puppy. And so everyone is going to be a little bit different. Everyone's anatomy is going to be a little bit different. Um, so there is one other thought that I have that goes along with that, and that is I always make sure that we are ruling out medical concerns. And
Okay.
so we may need to have a recheck with one of our vets on campus. I know that you live locally,
Okay.
and just make sure that there is no medical concern present.
Okay.
If there's a urinary tract infection, if she's got some irritation, that may be causing her extra motivation to eliminate inappropriately.
Okay.
So that's something that we need to rule out.
Okay.
When we also talk about young female dogs, we know that starting as early as 6 months, they have that potential for going in heat. And sometimes with our female dogs, they are more motivated to squat and squat frequently. And so that's something that we would just be watchful of as well.
She does
So
seem to be squatting a lot, and sometimes stuff comes out. It almost seems like it wants to come out, but maybe sometimes doesn't.
yeah.
So
So again, that's where that medical concern, little red flag comes in my mind. We just
okay.
need to rule out that there's nothing there, and that if this is solely behavioral, then we're going to work it out from a behavioral aspect.
And
But we're doing great behavior modification, and I know that you're getting her out pretty frequently, and there's a underlying medical concern, then we're not going to actually fully address the problem. And so that's where that
okay.
piece comes in.
Okay.
Um, Also supervising in the home. So you might need to go back to those early puppyhood times where you almost had an umbilical cord. Either she was in her crate or she had to stay in close contact, and you were getting her out frequently in order to prevent or avoid an accident. So you might need to go back to the basics just to help her along during this period of time.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, these recommendations are just the tip of the iceberg. And so don't feel like we've given you everything or exhausted all efforts. If we find out that this is not medically related, then make sure you come back and talk to me or your puppy counselor, and we can be sure to follow up with you and give you more advice.
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you guys for answering my question regarding why were you motivated to start puppy raising? I just want to scan through some of these and read them really fast. Pam Gilmore says she's a dog lover. She believes in our mission of Leader Dog. Puppy raising offers opportunity to perform a service for others. 13 months in, great experience, wonderful community. Yeah, I agree, Pam. I realize I do work here, but here's a little known fact. If you don't know my full history, I was actually a volunteer with Leader Dog in a couple of different capacities before I ever became an employee. So it's just one of those things that it does draw you in. I think we have a good experience and you want to stay with the community. I know VJ Joshi, my cohort, she was also another volunteer before she joined joined the ranks as a team member. So it's just something to think about. I think that we do have such a good experience, and we are so fortunate that we want to stick around for longer. It's a good community. I do want to look at a couple of other pieces. Emma Goebel says she is a big dog lover. We were about to erase our first future leader dog. We thought it was going to be an awesome way to volunteer um, our time for a great organization while also tiring out our current dog. We love the honesty. Thank you so much. That's a good one. All right. And one more we'll read. This is from Dawn Welsman. And she says, I always drove by Leader Dog and wanted to do this when I retired on my bucket list. I've worked in service industry as a health professional and feel normal. It feels normal to give back. Besides, I love dogs. And yeah, that's a great one. I think we're all kind of in the same place there. Thank you guys for answering those questions. I still want to go back through the chat and actually get to read them and enjoy them a little bit more. Looks like we have a hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
So, wait a sec. So, my friend got so this is like Kong knots, and we're not sure, do they allow it?
That is a good question. So number one, I have to say, it's not always the easiest to get in front of everyone and ask good questions. So
Mhm.
thank you for being very brave and confident and
Mhm.
coming on. So some of the approved toys that we are allowed to have our puppies play with include things that are a little bit harder and that they're not able to tear up or get a piece off of
Mhm.
because we don't want them to swallow it by mistake.
Mhm.
So a hard toy that's made of rubber or maybe
Yeah.
something like a plastic bone, those
Cause,
would be more ideal rather than a toy like that.
Cause like we're not sure because this is Kong knots, so there's like rope inside to get it more sturdy.
Yeah. So with that rope inside,
Mhm.
actually small little fragments of that rope can come off
Mhm.
and then swallow it by mistake and get really sick.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we want to make sure that we protect our dogs. I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
Do you know if you were going to pay money to buy one of our dogs, how much do you think it costs? If you were going to buy a leader dog, a fully trained leader dog.
40,000.
40,000. High five. That was a great answer. It is. And so when it comes to possibly swallowing things that might be dangerous,
Mhm.
we're extra cautious just to make sure that accidents don't happen. So very good question.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking your question. All right, guys, I have another question for you. So keep those dog training and leader dog questions coming, but I'm going to have another question for you. So this is a question that is going to be for my experienced puppy raisers. And if you are a brand new puppy raiser, you're on your first puppy, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are as well. My question for you is, what made you decide to come back and raise multiple puppies? It's very easy to try this project out, have experience with one puppy, and then be done. I'm curious to find out what was the deciding factor where you kept coming back and puppy raising and raising more puppies. So you can use the chat room if you want to share your thoughts. If you want to unmute yourself, I'd love to hear your reasoning behind your motivation to keep puppy raising. Saul looks like he's got a behavior question. It says, how do I keep my puppy from eating off the ground? That's a great question, Saul. And it's one that I probably can guarantee that many of the other attendees have either had this question in the past or they're thinking the same question to themselves right now. One of the things that we really try to teach our dogs is impulse control. And impulse control is all about teaching our dogs to make a good choice or a good decision all completely on their own. So that when they see something on the ground that might be tempting, that might be a kibble, it might be that somebody dropped their ice cream cone and it fell on the ground, and we want them just to walk past it and completely ignore it. So in order to do that, one of the things that we do is reward good behavior and ignore the behavior that we don't like. And we're going to do this in a training setting. So if we have some food or just a basic kibble or like a dry dog biscuit on the floor, I would have my puppy on leash so that we can prevent them from dashing. And I would get a significant distance away from whatever is on the floor. I would also start to encourage that my puppy walk past it. But the trick in this is that we're not going to say anything. We're not going to use a word that is going to stop the behavior. Words like no, leave it, even kind of making that noise with your voice. I actually want the puppy to be able to see the treat that's on the floor that they want to get at, look back up on me without being prompted to, and then I mark with my yes marker and I reward them for either moving past it, looking at me, paying attention to something else, or not going for the treat. This takes lots of practice. You're not going to get success the first time you do this exercise, but it's something that you build on. We have a lot of impulse control videos on our website. I'm sorry, on our YouTube page. So make sure that you visit our Leader Dogs Puppy Raiser YouTube page. If you're not sure of the link, feel free to email us later on and we can make sure that you get that, or email or contact your puppy counselor and they can get that link for you. And check out those videos because there are videos specifically set up to teach impulse control and teach our dogs to make good choices. Impulse control is so much of what we do as a puppy raiser because we're not always going to be there to tell the dog exactly what to do. Or when they're paired with somebody that is blind or visually impaired, they may not realize that an inappropriate item is on the ground, so they can't prompt them to make a good decision. So we really want our dogs to make a good decision on their own. That's a great question. So Saul, if you need more clarification, feel free to unmute yourself. And I'd love to give you a little bit more information on that. All right, guys, I'm just gonna look through. So my question that I asked to you guys was, what made you decide to keep puppy raising? So if you had one puppy, and you came back for some more puppies, what was your motivation? So this is from Nancy Colombo, and I know Nancy, I don't know how many you've raised off the top of my head. I'm gonna guess at least in the 15 mark. Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong. So she said the experience in 1992 was so much fun and so rewarding. We wanted to continue to help someone see with the dog and the staff with the staff and other raisers were a big helpful family. That's awesome. So Lisa Olson says, my first puppy graduated and it was so gratifying meeting the client and seeing them working together. Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry. I significantly undershot you. You're not at 15, you're at 27. That's very impressive. All right. So somebody that is just behind you with a few puppies, Beverly Kramer, who is also a puppy counselor. She says, I have raised 22 future leader dogs. That's no small feat. And the satisfaction of seeing my puppies develop the skills needed to provide guide work for a visually impaired person is immeasurable. I agree. I agree 100%, Beverly. In addition, I love to work with these frantic dogs, helping them to reach their fullest potential and learning something new with every single puppy. It has drawn me back time after time again. That's so great. Yes, for those that you guys that don't know, Beverly is one of our independent puppy raisers or puppy counselors. So she is able to help puppy raisers that don't live in close proximity to another group. They may be scattered around the United States. She oversees the western part of the United States. That's where all of her puppy raisers are at. And so she meets with them remotely, and she's very patient. And I know that she loves working through that process of dogs that may have a little bit more problems, but she's really patient to help the raiser. So that's a great one. All right, I'm going to look through, get us another answer. And I know that I have a couple of hands raised, guys. So I will get to your hands in just a second. So Debbie says her first dog was CC'd and she wanted to have some success. And I know she has, but she keeps on coming back for more. So that's great. Shelly says, the need hasn't gone away, so neither will I. That's awesome, Shelly. And Shelly is also one of our puppy counselors from the Grand Rapids area. Okay, we'll read one more response. Wait a second, guys. I'm just advancing my computer and it's a little sticky right now. Linda Gimble says, we are hooked on puppy raising, love the program and everyone involved. Thank you very much, Linda. Linda's also a puppy counselor in she's right on the Iowa and Illinois border. And thank you guys for all that you do. I know that we have a couple of hands raised. If you have your hands raised, go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask a question.
Hi, this is Debbie. I want to say first, I'm impressed by all these people that raise multiple puppies. This is my first puppy, 11 weeks old, that the leader dog puppy, I should say. I've had pets, but I have a question about him. So he is really uninterested in the Nylabones, anything I give him to try to direct his chewing. I've tried all kinds of.
Debbie, are you still there?
No, sorry, it went back on mute.
Oh, okay.
So did you hear so I have an 11-week-old puppy and he is uninterested in the Nylabones. I've done all the coconut oil, the peanut butter. I boiled him in beef broth. Every tip I've heard, I've tried. I've roughened him up. He just isn't interested. So when he is out and about out of his crate, it's really hard to redirect him because he doesn't want any of the bones. So I just am looking for any tips or along those lines.
So I'm going to give you some tips that I have as well, but I know because we have a room full of puppy raisers that are experienced in this area, they can also probably share a wealth of knowledge and a ton of tips for you. So if you guys have some suggestions for Debbie and her 11-week-old puppy, and what's his name, Debbie?
His name's Frankie.
Frankie, all right. So if you have a tip for Debbie and Frankie in encouraging more interactions with Nylabones, then go ahead and drop it in the chat room. I'm sure she would appreciate hearing from you guys, especially the ones that have raised numerous puppies. And I have a couple of thoughts too. So Debbie, has it just been the Nyla brand dog versions of the bones that you have tried, or have you tried other brands?
I have that Benabone, that
Okay.
wishbone looking one,
Yeah.
the Nylabones. I have Kongs, anything that is in the puppy raiser manual that's approved. And I bought a couple of elk antlers too.
Okay.
And he's good for maybe 30 seconds tops.
Okay. So there are a couple of thoughts. So I'm glad that you've tried outside. Outside the realm, and not just Nylabones. Sometimes Nylabones can be a little bit bland. Some dogs, I find that they do like them. I really like the Bennabones because they tend to be a little bit more flavorful. I think they come in chicken, and there's like a bacon flavor and maybe even a maple flavor. So those tend to be very motivating. Linda responded with one of my favorite suggestions, and we have to be a little bit cautious when we do this, but we find that bones that have already been chewed by another dog tend to be really tempting to a new puppy. When they are perfectly smooth and out of the package, they're not very interesting. And I did hear that you took them outside on the pavement and kind of gave them a little bit of rough up. And that is really good, but it may not be enough. So if you find a willing participant to start a bone for you, or maybe even talk to some of the puppy raisers in this group, if somebody has a bone that's already started and they wouldn't mind helping you out, somebody might be willing to share for you as well. I would just make sure that you give it a good wash, run through the dishwasher. Of course, we're always concerned about health problems and sharing health problems from dog to dog, even within our colony. And so I'd recommend that you sanitize bones in between dogs, but tends to get that little roughed up texture, makes it more interesting. Shelly also has some tips. She says, find what he does like, maybe water, fill in a squeeze tube and use as a treat. Keep one in your pocket. So does he like peanut butter, Debbie?
Yes, he loves peanut butter.
Okay, good. So one of the things that I've been known to do is take a Nylabone and I just give a very light coating of peanut butter on it. It's almost sheer and transparent. And then I put that in the freezer so that it freezes. And then it just gets the bone a little bit more potent when the dogs want to chew on it. So that's something that you can consider if you've not tried that already. Another suggestion, if you've not tried it, is to put your Nylabones in your bag of dog food or your dog food bin, and that gets them a little extra scented as well. Or even let them hang out with some jerky type treats. So the really stinky chicken or beef type jerky treats, those are really potent. And if they hang around a Nylabone, if they're in the same bag as a Nylabone, it tends to scent them and make them a little bit more tempting. Some more suggestions. Ice cubes are a big one. And Debbie says, other Debbie says, Debbie, take your antlers and bake them in a barbecue grill, indirect heat, and it picks up the meat smell. Do this for about 30 minutes at 30 degrees, I believe it says. 30 minutes. And so that will amp it up. So hopefully these new suggestions will give you some help, Debbie.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, so Eula and Natalia, I can see that you guys have your hands raised. What questions do you have?
So yes, hi everyone. Our puppy is 12 weeks now and he's well behaving, but we have issues with meeting new people. So when the distance is like 10 feet away, he can sit, he can wait, he is focused, everything is perfect. But when the person starts to approach him, he gets so excited that
Right.
he can't handle it and we can't handle him either. And actually we expose him like frequently, like 2 times a day on the walks near playgrounds, near busy streets to get him used to it. But he's so social that it bothers us that, he knows the rules. We know that he knows the rules, but he still can't sit and calm down even after, 1 minute. He's crazy excited.
Yes, definitely. So this is a great question. And I think it's one that is a shared frustration by many fellow puppy raisers. Just a little bit ago, we talked to Saul, who was having some concerns with his puppy having impulse control and leaving food items on the ground. This is just another impulse control problem. So despite the fact that our puppy really wants to interact with people, it's not an ideal choice for them to do that because eventually we want them to become focused on their handler, that person that's on the other end of the leash. So here are some things to think about. Despite the fact that he's a baby puppy now, he's relatively young, he's only 12 weeks old, and you've only had him for such a short period of time, this is also the most impressionable time and the time that we really want to lay a solid foundation of our behavior and what our expectations are. So I would probably consider implementing a no petting rule or a no interacting rule with your puppy. If you're taking him out in public, then I would practice having him sit and finding the distance away from you and him where he continues to stay in a sit, in a stand, or a down. So what I like to say is, does he have still feet and a quiet mouth? If his feet are planted on the ground and he's not barking or making any other vocalizations, then I'm pretty happy with that. I don't tend to fuss too much about what obedience position that they're in, whether they're in a stand, a down, or a sit. As long as they have a still feet and a quiet mouth, I'm pretty happy about that. I also want to make sure that I reward them for all that behavior with people at a farther enough distance so that he can master that. And you're going to slowly decrease that distance with people coming and approaching him. Slowly for me means over weeks or months as we're building that level of success. I would also really encourage the rule that no petting or no interactions with people unless his rear end stays on the ground or his feet stay on the ground. This will help him gain success. One of the things that I always recommend, and I think the technology that we have now is great because we're always in arm's reach of a cell phone and we can take video very easily. Snap a video with your camera of a typical interaction, share that with your puppy counselor, and or your puppy development coordinator, and they're typically able to coach you through the scenario that they're seeing in real life and give you step-by-step directions. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, thank you. I mean, for example, when we take him to the store and people are busy with doing grocery and don't show him attention, he's perfectly fine. But
Good.
when he senses that someone has this intention to say hello to him, it is like seconds. He is right into the person.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I'm going to say is that we also want to make sure that we reward him and that you use your marker word to identify desirable behaviors.
Yes.
Remember, that marker word is the word yes, and you want to say it like you're excited and you just won the lotto. And you want to use that pretty frequently. So you want to catch as many good behaviors as possible. Just as human nature, we tend to forget when our dog is being good. We tend to forget to reinforce them for the positive, and then we get more frustrated when they're doing the inappropriate behavior. So I tend to be very rapid fire with my reinforcement and with my marking when I see them doing that desirable behavior. And I'm talking about giving 5 to 10 marks and treats right in a row to really encourage his butt to stay on the ground.
Sure. Thank you. We will try the no petting and no contact rule, and we will see. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. All right, guys. So I'm just looking through our questions here. And as I'm looking through your questions, I also am going to pose another question for you. Is there a virtual training session a topic that you really hope to see that we haven't presented yet? So we've been doing this just over a year now. I know it's been something that has been a great experience for myself and for the rest of my team. I think we've learned a lot technology-wise. I think that our presentations have gotten so much more improved from the beginning to now until today. And so we have covered a lot of ground, but we want to know, is there a topic that you're missing out on? Is there something that you want to see? Is there a guest speaker that you want to have? Let me know what you think in the chat room. So I have a question from Cynthia Waller, and she says, I'm having a very hard time getting my puppy in the car, and he's getting too big to lift. I have tried treats and other motivations, but he wants nothing to do with it and fights getting in. This is a great question, Cynthia, and one that we actually had, I'm going to say it's been about 2 months now, that Laura Fisher worked with one of our guest speakers who was also a puppy counselor, and her name is Jackie Wolfinger Zellinger. And if you go on to our virtual training sessions YouTube playlist, there is actually a great session that Jackie and Laura did together on hesitancy in getting in the car. And we work through step-by-step directions on teaching your puppy to approach the car and being very comfortable. Because what we tend to see is that it's not just a matter of getting in, but as you're walking towards the car, the puppy picks up those cues and then they start to balk or put on the brakes. So we actually break it down to making them comfortable just approaching the car and reinforcing there. Now, one of the important points or tips that I want to share with you is that you are going to want to create a special training time to work on this particular problem that is separate from needing to go somewhere. So if you are in a rush, you are late for a doctor's appointment, and you want to bring your puppy with you, that wouldn't be an ideal time to start working through this scenario. You're actually going to want to practice it outside of the context. So when it's Saturday morning, you've got nothing going on, you've got nowhere to be, I would practice this approach of getting into the car and building this confident and comfortable feeling. So things that I would reinforce are walking to the car door, you touching the car door, marking and rewarding the presence of your dog being there. And before you actually get in the car, I'd walk away before you actually get in. I would do that multiple times and build on this behavior. I want them to be really, really comfortable with that act. The second step for me would be approaching the car door, having you put your handle on or a hand on the handle, and you can consider whether you slightly open it, jiggle the handle or not, or if you just walk away at that moment. So again, a tiny little approximation of the next step, making it a little bit hard and a little bit easier. Then I would eventually build up to opening the car door and maybe even having the puppy place their front feet on and rewarding for that. Now, when we're doing these types of training exercises involving a car, we often use the help of a couple of training tools. You can look to see what you have in your environment, if you either own a training platform or if you want to get crafty and make a training platform. And check out our virtual training session again. Barry Lynn did a wonderful training session on making platforms at home. And if your puppy knows how to go on a platform already, you can use that as part of a bridge for them to walk into the car and start building that confidence. Also, again, another recommendation, I think that we've had some great virtual training sessions. Barry Lynn has done several on rear end awareness. And sometimes we find that the hesitancy with puppies not willing to jump in a vehicle is just because they really haven't found their center of gravity and how their back legs work separately than their front legs. And it seems very silly, I realize, but they need to find that coordination and they need to find that comfort. And so there are other exercises that we can do to teach them how to move their back legs and front legs separately, and also build some muscle and a little bit more of limb awareness. So I'd recommend that you go take a look at those videos as well and start to build it. And again, I'm going to go back to we are able to determine problems really well if you have videos. One of the things that I always recommend is chances are if you're having this problem, somebody else is having this problem too. And it's always great to share these videos and learn from each other. And chances are we can figure out exactly what the nuance might be, if you're doing all the right things, what that little nuance is in order to get you into a better place. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for sharing that question. It's a good question. Looks like we've got some feedback in here. Dana Cochran says, topics, shopping in a store with a puppy, traveling in a car with a puppy. Oh, great. Carolyn Crow says, we can never have too much suggestions about training and behavior and distractions at all ages. Yes, definitely. That is a good question. Michelle B, I think this is Michelle Bacon, says, following up on the car question, what is the best way to teach a puppy to sit on the floor, on the car? As our puppy has gotten bigger, she is no longer jumping on the seats and trying to get our attention in the entire time. We have been rewarding good behaviors, but she really wants to see everything going on. Yeah, so I typically like to use some sort of tether system. I know that myself and several other people, we get really crafty with either using an old leash or a leash that's really inexpensive that we don't care if we cut it into pieces or a puppy chews on it slightly. But I tend to take a section of a leash or an old leash and I actually loop it under the hardware of the front passenger seat. So I loop the leash handle under there and have it come out the front portion so that my puppies just have a long enough tab so that they're not able to jump onto the seat when they're riding in the passenger floorboard, but they're able to actually stay in place. And I want them to be able to stretch, curl up into a ball, stand and get comfortable if they need to, but not have enough room to jump onto the seat. And so that's one of the things that I've done. There is a tool, and I don't know what the name of it is, but it is used in grooming, I know, and it almost looks just like the handle of a leash with a clip on it. And I have found that those are really helpful tools to use as a tether underneath my car as well, underneath my car seat. So something to keep in mind. Nancy Colombo says, if it helps to remember, all dogs go through phases, and sometimes we have to just wait and work them out until they get it. I agree, Nancy. Dogs are going to go through different stages. They're also going to go through different fear periods, and they're going to have more times that they are really responsive to learning. It's okay if you decide to take a little break. So if you're having one specific issue, maybe you're having an issue with the stairs, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on this issue for a little while. I'm going to focus on other aspects of training and not going to focus on this one single aspect. Come back to it in a little bit, and your puppy may find success at a different time. Forcing the issue is just going to be very frustrating for you, and chances are very frustrating for your puppy. All right, guys, I'm going to skim through just because we're going to be finishing up. It's about 15 minutes to 1. So I'm just going to make sure. Let's see here. So this question is for from Dawn, and she says she's having a difficult time stopping the jumping up on us. We leave her leash on in the house, and to be able to stop her from jumping, we have not seen improvement. She sits very well, but when we come to her close, she gets so excited. Yeah, so if you guys have not heard it already, this is yet another impulse control exercise. So our dogs are motivated to do one thing, and we want them to make a good choice on their own to do something different. So when I teach this exercise, there's a couple of ways to teach it. And what I really like to do is part of what you've already started with, Dawn, and that's actually attaching a leash to the puppy's collar. And then I attach that leash to something else, something that is sturdy that the puppy can't pull, because then I'm going to actually practice an impulse control exercise. One of the things that I do is I start to approach the puppy from a far distance away. And if my puppy starts jumping up and they're pawing and they're trying to see me, maybe they're barking, I stop and I just wait. I don't say anything. I don't give the puppy any verbal cues or any information. I wait for them to make a choice to be calm. The second that they put all 4 feet on the ground, they're quiet, they stop to watch, they calm themselves down, I mark and I just toss them a little kibble of food. I might even move a little, maybe an inch or two closer to them, and I continue playing the game so that their good behavior is what predicts me coming closer. Undesirable behavior means I stay farther away. They actually get 2 reinforcements. One of the reinforcements is me coming closer. The other is what comes out of my treat bag. So Dawn, I know that you are in one of my puppy raising groups. If we need help working on this, let me know. We can always work together and definitely work through this process. I know how frustrating it can be. All right, guys, we're going to finish up. Thank you guys for playing along, answering my questions. It was such a great training session. We'll be back next Thursday at noon for another training session. So thank you for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy this beautiful weather. Bye, everyone.
Bye.